Hello, Mr. Muda Yusuf.
Yes, how are you?
How are you, sir? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'll be with you shortly, too.
Okay, you have two of us?
Yes, from Abuja studio. Welcome to Business Nigeria. I am Yemisi Lanredo. First off in the news, the Nigeria Incentive-Based Risk Sharing for Agriculture Lending (NESL) has unveiled plans to assist farmers generate revenue of 135 billion naira this year through the Anchor Borrowers Program of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The Managing Director, Aliyu Abdul Hamid, made this known at the Pula Insurance Workshop in Abuja with the theme Accelerating Growth of Agriculture Insurance in Nigeria, Lessons Learned and Way Forward. Abdulhamid says with the strategic plan for this year, NESL will support 500,000 smallholder farmers to cultivate over 600,000 hectares with product equivalent of 1.5 million metric tons. Well, history has shown that no nation can become great without developing its agriculture. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, about 800 million people are chronically malnourished worldwide. Nigeria has the highest number, with more than 40% of the country's population facing food security. In this report, Yusuf Akogu examines reforms by successive governments with a view to addressing food shortage.
Agriculture played a dominant role in Nigeria's economy before independence. The sector contributed 67% to gross domestic product between 1960 to 1961, aside the provision of food and employment. During this period, Nigeria was the world's second largest producer of cocoa and highest producer and exporter of palm kernel and palm oil.
As remnant of those days, you discover that in some part of Nigeria there were silos. Silos is where you store grain. You discover that there were farm settlements, which private sectors are trying to, revive now, coming up with their own. You discover that there were commodity boards. You have something like cocoa board that would guarantee a certain level of pricing, and they could mop up excess and ensure that farmers can sell at minimum. So there are so many policies and, frameworks that helps, with sincerity of purpose. So this day, you look at any state in Nigeria, apart from some northern state, you look at how many percent of their budget is allocated to agriculture, and it's appalling. It's so small. Back then, they understood that that's the only option we have. But now, that's not the only option. We still have oil. Some people say it's going to dry. Should we wait? What if it didn't dry? We should have balance of both.
At the dawn of the 70s, the bubble burst. Agriculture lost its dominant position to crude oil and natural gas in terms of contribution to GDP, the export basket, foreign exchange earnings, and government revenue. The food situation was alarming to the extent that Nigeria, once one of the leading producers of certain crops, became an importer of some of the same products.
The message is to all those engaged in the agricultural value chain, farmers, fishermen, pastoralists, processors, that the Council will further deepen the gains that have been achieved in the last 2.5 years by providing more opportunities for all stakeholders and all participants to expand and increase the level of their activities.
Because one other stop is the price of stalls and market shops are so high in a place like Abuja. You have a tiny store about 10 square meters, and the person renting it is paying close to 800,000 per month or per annum. How much profit is this person making? So if it comes to that, since Abuja is large enough and many of the cities have space, there are things we must do to bring down the price of food, because otherwise people are unhappy and their wages can't cope, and that's giving rise to all the tension in society.
The intervention schemes of government shortly after the period of oil boom did not help in lifting the agricultural sector from neglect. Notable among them are the Operation Feed a Nation program of the military government between 1976 to 1980, which sought to increase local food production and reduce imports. As a follow-up to the OFN scheme, the Green Revolution program was launched by former President Shehu Shagari in 1980 to increase the production of food and raw materials to meet the need of a growing population. The last may not have been heard of National Schools Agriculture Program launched by former President Goodluck Jonathan in 2014. Analyst says none of these programs made a desired impact on food production in the country.
Nigeria has a population. We've been told that Lagos has 24 million. That is over 30 African countries combined. How do we feed them? We are still importing so many things. The issue is that government will always they've been adopting fire brigade approach. Government should have a planning commission, a national planning commission that should plan every aspect of our economy, including agriculture. When that is done, we should know what should happen. Then the central bank should prevail on banks to give people loans that can enable them to establish businesses, including the agri-business. Situation where you give a loan at an interest rate of 20–30%, what type of business are you going to do?
They are good programs, but they are just solving, they are just focusing on the symptoms, not the root cause. If we legislate a framework that will guide or enforce that whoever is coming in, politicians now, because they come and go, follow this framework is a law. Our food security should no longer be something that politicians will use to campaign. It should be a national policy that will be entrenched in our constitution.
Despite the challenges faced in the sector, there has been improved lending to farmers recently following intervention by the present administration through the CBN Anchor Borrowers Program. Also, the CBN has amended the Commercial Agriculture Credit Scheme and pegged the maximum loan intake under the scheme to 2 billion naira. The interest rate to borrowers is kept at single digits of 9%, inclusive of all charges.
The agriculture industries that have been set up by the government that are supposed to assist are really not doing much in this aspect, because the bureaucracy you have to pass through to obtain these credit facilities is always very difficult. And I think government should look inward. If we want more for export from Nigeria, I think agriculture is the mainstay. It's where the government needs to look into now. And thank God, government also is looking towards that direction.
Most smallholder farmers don't need cash. What they need is resources. If you do your calculation, for a smallholder farmer, the biggest chunk of his expense is land preparation. Don't throw cash at solving every problem. I don't think it will solve it. It has never solved anything. I don't think it will. So access to credit might be important for people who will need to process from raw material to finished product, because they need to invest heavily in machineries.
In Nigeria, have got an advantage in all aspects. One, when you talk of the land, you have massive lands and they're still fertile. You don't have issues with problem with water. You don't have problem with market. So everything literally is here. Agriculture is the only permanent business that will ever remain on the earth's surface. Bankers, doctors must eat. That tells you we must produce food.
Nigeria is well positioned to be self-sufficient in the production of food and cash crops for local consumption, export, as well as raw materials for industries. Yusuf Akogu, TVC News, Lagos.
Well, that's a big story for today. And after the break, I'll be joined by the president of the All Farmers Association, Daniel Okafor, from Abuja studios, and also the DG Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Muda Yusuf. Do stay with us on Business Nigeria. was just. Irọ́, ẹ̀yin náà mo ti ń gbọ́ wọn. You're watching Business Nigeria, and our focus is food security in Nigeria, especially in this time of food shortage. It is shocking that 40% of the country's population is facing food shortage and food insecurity. Let me start with you, the president of All Farmers Association at Abuja Studios, Daniel Okafor. Yes, from that report, I'm very sure you heard it. A lot of issues were outlined. As a president of All Farmers Association, Nigeria is well positioned to secure itself with food, but there are lots of issues entrenched that we have when it comes to food security. Let's talk about strategic reserves. Don't you think it is time for Nigeria to develop strategic reserves for farmers?
Good day. My name is Chief Daniel Okafor. I am the Vice National President of Farmers Association of Nigeria, AFAN. I am very happy to be in this platform today. The question you are asking about the food security and the strategic is true. If Nigeria can do it, it's all right. But there is a lot of things that is happening in the food security in this country. First and foremost, the policy of the government is not favoring the farmers. Because when they are doing the policy, the farmers are not being carried along. It is who knows what is the farmers is doing is the organization that is All Farmers Association of Nigeria, which is the umbrella body of the farmers. They knew everything pertaining the farmers and what they need. Like, if a farmer wants anything, it is through this All Farmers Association of Nigeria that they can relate so that the government should know actually what they want. Like, for example, the food security we are talking about, what we need is the land clearing to be a policy in this country, so that if a farmer needs any land, the land should be cleared for him. Then a good quality seed is also required. And the extension workers is also needed. And also, we want a loan that is of little interest.
All right, I will come back to you, Mr. Okafor. Let me talk to the DG of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Muda Yusuf. He joins me via Skype. Yes, he has made some points that farmers would need, what they would need, a lot of issues involved in this, and still talking about strategic reserves. For example, Nigeria exported yam, but most times these are goods that are perishable. Yam, tomatoes, and some of them are discouraged on planting this kind of crops. They would rather go for the little that they can manage. What is that strategic preservation that Nigeria needs to be inventing? For example, we have the agri-tech, the agricultural technology ongoing in some foreign Western countries. Don't you think it is time for Nigeria to be going that way?
Yeah, thank you very much. We have a major issue with capacity in the agricultural sector. The point you are referring to about technology for preservation, strategic reserves, and so on, is essentially a capacity problem. We are not deploying adequate or sufficient technology in agriculture. I appreciate all the efforts of government, Anchor Borrowers Program, and so on, but the impact of these efforts are still not very significant, which is why we are today talking about the issue of food security. So we need to deal with the issue of capacity of the players in the agricultural sector. There are technical capacity problems. That's the capacity to mechanize agriculture, capacity to preserve, capacity to process, capacity to access the market. These are major capacity problems. There's also the issue of financial capacity. Some of the things you mentioned are things that some farmers also know, but they don't have the financial capacity to do so. You cannot effectively and profitably do an agri-business with the commercial bank loans of 25%, 30%. That is like an investment suicide. So financing agriculture is still a big issue. Then we talk about capacity, just as one of your discussants also referred to, land clearing is a very big problem. Many of our farmers cannot mechanize because they don't have the access to the machinery to clear the land. Tractors are very expensive, and there is, in many instances, no even rental opportunities, no place for them to lease or rent. There are some states that don't have a single tractor in their states. Because this problem is not just a problem for the federal government, it's also a major challenge to the states. The states are closer to the farmer than the federal government. So the states governments have a lot to do to scale up the capacity of the farmers to be able to deal with this issue of food security.
All right,
talk about seedlings, you talk about so many other things. There's also the problem of the environment. Desertification is becoming an increasingly problematic issue, particularly in the northern part of the country.
Mr. Muda Yusuf, let me quickly get Mr. Okafor's take on this. You talked about capacity, a lot of issues, capacity to preserve, capacity for funding and all that. Mr. Okafor, okay, perhaps the state governments, the federal governments have all this in place. Are the farmers, your members, are they ready to embrace new technology?
Yes, the issue of the new technology, like we support the research and development. The reason is that we have been traveling all over the country, other countries. So, and we notice without science and technology, we are nowhere. So actually, there's a lot of things to be done in this country. In area of storage, as you said, I know of many years, there is what we call a processing zone they are doing in Kefi for yam and sweet potato. The company that came from it is a first produce. They are from UK. So I don't know how they abandoned the processing of that yam center. Up till now, they have not finished it. The contract is been awarded many years ago. So it is where I notice if farmers is fully involved in the monitoring and the evaluation of whatever is happening in agriculture sector in Nigeria, we must do something better.
Okay,
so
Mr.
I want to take you back again.
Go ahead.
On the issue of why the food security in the country will not go very well. The issue of the farmers' herdsmen problem. The way it is treated, the farmers and the herdsmen are friends. All of them are farmers. So why are they having a problem? Because what I'm just trying to tell you is that by next year, if care is not taken, there must be a problem all over the country. So we must look into it. Farmers and the herdsmen are friends for years. So there will be no food if there is no peace.
Okay, Mr. Okafor, let me talk to Mr. Yusuf now. Mr. Okafor has made some points noted here. He has even brought the issue of the farmers and the herders clashes. But successive governments have made or have brought up different reforms. But with all that you have noted, do you think they are not putting all that you have noted into consideration, or that it is not enough?
Well, the issue is that in many of these political pronouncements, there is more of rhetoric than actual action. Action that is impactful. That is what we have seen. Because if you talk to the farmers on the field, they are so far disconnected, heavily disconnected from some of these policy things that happen. Of course, there are pockets of success stories in Kebbi and all of that. But the farming community in Nigeria is much more than that. The agricultural community is much more than that. There's a lot of focus on rice and all of that. But there are so many other crops. There are so many other segments of agriculture that quite a lot of these policies really touch. So there is need for proper feedback on our policy process, policy implementation. There is need for feedback for those who are the real farmers. Because what we hear from some of these operators in the sector is that many of these facilities, benefits, loans are hijacked by people who have political connections. That is affecting the impact of some of these policies on agricultural productivity. And I also want to align myself with the point made by the All Farmers official. He talked about security. Increasingly, security challenges is becoming a major factor in agriculture. Because if you have a situation where the risk of famine is increasing by the day, where farming communities are being, dislocated, where people are afraid to go to farms and all of that, increasingly that will pose a major threat to food security.
All right.
And this is something that is now spreading across the country. So it's something that we really need to watch. I also talk about the issue of environment. Climate change is a big issue.
Yes, we have all your points noted, Mr. Muda Yusuf. And from what you have said, feedback from real farmers is pertinent. And from what Mr. Okafor said, real farmers' inclusion into reforms and policies is also very important. Unfortunately, we cannot go ahead with the discussion, but we would have to thank you at this point, the DG, Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Muda Yusuf, and Mr. Daniel Okafor of the All Farmers Association. Many thanks for your time, you both.
Thank you very much.
And crude oil prices have stayed upward, holding prospect of higher revenue of oil-producing nations. At the London market, the Brent crude trades for $75 a barrel, improving value by 69 cents above weekend price. The OPEC crude steadies at $70 a barrel. And with that interesting discussion today, many thanks for your time on Business Nigeria. I am Yemisi Lanredo.